for the opening of our meeting according to law. Islam, Islam, Islam. I'm Divine Minister Dr. Marvin Edward Spade, Consul General of the Texas Territory, rising, giving all praise to the great God Allah, the Father of the universe, and giving highest honors to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give high honors to our Moorish American government, our Act 1, and all of our officials and citizens of the Moorish American government, and everything that is Moorish, and that's everything that the Prophet brought to save us as a nation of people, so that fallen humanity may be saved from the wrath of Allah. I will be reading the chapter of the week, chapter 43, holy instructions and warning for all young men. I will begin. Beware, young man. Beware of all the allurement of wantonness, and let not the harlot tempt thee to excess in her delights. The madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits. From the blindness of its rage thou shalt rush upon destruction. Therefore, give not up thy heart to her sweet enticements, neither suffer thy soul to be enslaved by her enchanting delusions. The fountain of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure, shall quickly be dried up, and every spring of joy shall be exhausted. In the prime of thy life, old age shall overtake thee. The sun shall decline in the morning of thy days. But when virtue and modesty enlighten her charms, the luster of a beautiful woman is brighter than the stars of heaven, and the influence of her power, it is in vain to resist. The whiteness of her bosom transcended the lily. Her smile is more delicious than a garden of roses. The innocence of her eyes is like that of the turtle. Simplicity and truth dwell in her heart. The kisses of her mouth are sweeter than honey. The perfumes of Arabia breathe from her lips. Shut not thy bosom to the tenderness of love. The purity of its flame shall ennoble thy heart and soften it to receive the barest impression. Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Dr. Marvin Evans Spade, Consul General of the Texas Territory. Today's date is December 27th, 2025. We give honors to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, Dr. Akuharu Yahudi Bey, for the opening of our meeting of our Moorish Perspectives class according to law, and honors to Dr. Marvin Evans Spade for the reading of the chapter of the week and taking registration. Our host for tonight's class is our National Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, Dr. Shedu Amintidel Mohamed Stepsuel. His subject, Ayat 2, the madness of desires shall defeat its own pursuits. From the blindness of its rage, thou shalt rush upon destruction. We will now call to the floor our host. Islam?
Islam. Can you hear me, Brother Emmy Bay?
That's okay, you there?
Unmuted.
Islam. Can you hear me now, brother?
Oh, yes, sir. I hear you loud and clear.
Yes, sir. Gratitude. Praise be to Allah. Islam. Islam, 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 Moorish America. Want to rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, And honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere. And therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution, and bylaws. And honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our holy prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. I want to welcome you, Moorish kin, to another Moorish Perspectives. I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Al-Mohadi Shabazel. And my ancient committee and high name being the same as Dr. Shedawar Minty El Mohajid Shepsuel. And we have a powerful measure to bring to the manifest Moorish kin. As always, we give honors to all of you that are on the front line. I want to give honors to all of our ascended masters when it comes to our officials emeritus, our National Grand Sheikh, National Grand Mufti, aid and assisting our Holy Prophet from the plane of soul. We give honors to all of those who are on the manifest in this new era and time, demonstrating that which is love divine. And we got some grand drawings to bring forth, family. We also sent the link out to our family who would like to come on the panel. We got a powerful demonstration in reference to this particular title. For those who don't know, these particular titles actually begin to go into what we call the titles that the title in relation to dealing with this measure is coming from the holy instructions warning from for all young men. And in fact, these are character building lessons. All of them are, but these are specific in reference to the instruction of character building, and they lead into our social duties and so forth and so on. Teach us how we are to commence, into the world. Everything it is that we are to demonstrate is to be demonstrated from the highest degree of unfoldment. Praise be to Allah for giving us the opportunity to be able to build along the lines of building the temple of perfected man. Allah is definitely always leading on, and victory is sure. And in that sure victory, we are able to display or place on display, the strength of the great God Allah made manifest as he uses us, utilize us, so to speak, to be a grand expression of his divine decree. When it comes to the lesson and the blessing, we all have a purpose, and Allah don't make no mistakes. So yeah, we got a grand drawing to bring on the manifest, Moorish kin. And this is going to be a powerful demonstration. So we encourage our Moorish kin to pay attention to everything that we mentioned. So our subject title is coming from chapter 43. And this particular subject title is in relation, again, to the holy instruction and warning for all young men. What is the purpose of this special demonstration? Now, there are many different instructions that are given in this chapter, and we chose to come forth from Ayat 2 to break the ice, so to speak. The first measure, we are told, beware, young man, beware of all the allurements of wantonness, and let not the harlot tempt thee to excess in her delights. This is one of the first instructions that one is given. Now, we know that this harlot degree is a degree that has haunted not even young men, but elder men, throughout the annals of history. This harlot that it is being referred to here, on one level, we may look at this as being a physical woman. This is no disrespect to the women that are in their higher self, because there's a difference between a harlot and a God woman. So if one is in the state of being a God woman, then we know a goddess is most definitely not offended by this special measure. Because men, too, can become harlots, whether one know it or not. Being a harlot ain't got no gender on it. But in all actuality, harlot can also be a symbolic expression, of misdirection, as it relates to particular condition that one go through. A harlot can be a symbolic degree, to be tempted by anything. That can be a harlot degree. Give me 1 second. So, as we were stating, that harlot degree can be just a degree of temptation. It doesn't have to be, woman, like I said, per se. Even in the book of Revelation, you hear them talk about, the mystery woman, and they refer to it as Babylon. And they refer to Babylon as the great harlot. And this has to do with everything that tempts one from the higher self, a higher state of vibration. And even though they use the expression of the mystery woman, this is still being symbolic. It's still being symbolic to something that is on a different degree, so to speak. So make no mistake about it. If we were to go into the concept of Babylon, Babylon actually, represents a state of condition of confusion. So when one is tempted to excess in their delights, a lot of time this brings about a whirlwind of confusion. You see? And ain't no telling what may come about in a whirlwind of confusion. Ain't no telling what you may run into. All of this has to do with, distractions and detractions, or whatever the case may be. Whatever it is, you see, that is one's weakest self. The ayat that follows this up, it states, and you can see it flowing across the bottom of the screen. This is what we chose to give our measure on. The madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits. From the blindness of its rage, thou shalt rush upon destruction. You know how people say play a fool to catch a fool, or play a sucker to catch a sucker, so to speak. This is the type of degree that the lower self, plays on an individual. We know that we have all types of monitoring spirits and familiar spirits, that work through other people and know you, in most cases, better than you know yourself. Because while we are in a state to where we are not studying ourselves as we should, you have some people that's all they do. They like to study other people, and this is what we refer to when we talk about monitoring spirits. There are those who will seek to demonstrate in their whole life, studying you, what it is that gets you to ticking and clicking, so to speak. In most cases, this is how people are controlled. This is how the world is manipulated. This is how the world is able to be tempted into excess when it comes to what one delights, what it is that one seeks out of life. One can be strung alone or manipulated because one has studied you so much to where they know what it takes in order to direct you, in a particular direction. This is the way the West is built. How do you think Rome knows how to make a criminal? And then they will condemn the criminal from being the criminal after having put one in a situation to where they result to what they call criminal activity. And this feeds the system, the justice system, as they like to call it, right? To the extent to where they can always fall back on poverty. So they create the cycle of poverty. I'm just giving one example that we are all familiar with. And then you will see that ones begin to respond accordingly, and after every action, there's opposite reaction, right? The pendulum swings in both directions. So this is the way that the world has been created, to the extent to where just like a system knows how to manipulate society, a man knows how to manipulate a woman knows how to manipulate a man, children know how to manipulate their parents to get what they want or what they desire. So we live in a world that is based upon manipulation, when one's is demonstrating in the corner realm of chaos. And nothing good ever comes out of that, especially when one finds out that they have been misled, run amok, led astray. Many of our people that are suffering as a result of a lack of knowledge, they have no idea that they are being manipulated, by a system that has been propped up to ensure that every ounce of humanity is drained from them and they have nothing to give in the end. So just the basic aspect of being able to be disciplined is enough to preserve one when it comes to dealing with your life. Because if you can be strung alone by your lower self and you don't have a hinge, on yourself, then who knows where you may end up. And that's what this lesson is pretty much, dedicated to. It goes on to say, therefore, give not up thy heart to her sweet enticements, neither suffer thy soul to be enslaved by her enchanting delusions. This is the nature of life as we have experienced it. When it comes into, where one is along the way. Give me 1 second right here, Morris Ken. 1 second. Pardon self. So yeah, we have a grand draw at No Morris Ken in relation to dealing with this special measure as it relates to this concept, because when we go into, again, what was being said in our Moorish Holy Quran, and we talk about, suffering not your soul. Because see, you have a soul, but then there are actions of the soul. And the actions of the soul are thinking, reasoning, willing, understanding, and remembrance. So if you suffer the actions of your soul to be enslaved by enchanting illusions, then this means that your thinking becomes compromised. Your ability to will a thing or have a strong will begins to be compromised. Reasoning compromised, understanding is compromised. You see, and remembrance. All of these things become compromised when one suffers their soul to be enslaved. We know that there are culprits on the manifest when it comes to dealing with slavery. And we make reference to them as slave makers, slave catchers, slave holders, slave breakers, and, so forth and so on. All of these are really different expressions that deal with the five folds of man, actually. Instability, inconstancy, insufficiency of knowledge, misery, human knowledge, and, all of these particular things represent how one is strung along. It all has to do with the way that one has been reared up. Has one been properly groomed in the way of divinity to be able to know the enemy of man? You see? So that's a whole measure in and of itself. But then it goes on and it speaks of the fountain of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure. Now, the fountain of health will have to be in reference to the ability to have life in general. Health is to the body as honesty is to the soul, which supply the stream, that fountain of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure, shall quickly be dried up, and every spring of joy shall be exhausted. Now, we're looking at the physical on the manifest. We already know what this stream of pleasure would represent on the manifest. That's a true thing too, for the ones that are caught up, in the lustful environment of the world. But it says, in thy prime of life, old age shall overtake thee. You imagine that, being in the prime of your life and old age overtaking you? It says, the sun shall decline in the morning of thy days. We'll let you figure out what that means. But when the virtue and modesty enlighten her charms, the lust of a beautiful woman is brighter than the stars of heaven, and the influence of her power is vain to resist. The virtue, and modesty that enlightens the charms of a beautiful woman, it actually represents the woman becoming an expression of wisdom. Man has knowledge, and he gives knowledge to the woman, and it reflects in the wisdom. And understanding manifests, through what they rear up in their children. That's a grand drawing we often would build with our family in the nation of gods and earths. The 5%, they say, well, knowledge represents man, wisdom is woman, and then you have the child. It takes knowledge and wisdom to consummate, a union in order to bring forth that understanding. We say understanding is the rock upon which man builds himself. So we're looking at this from a grand degree, so to speak, and not just making it physical. We're dealing with the metaphysical and bringing it out of an abstract into reality is what we're doing. So surely, if a man, give a goddess enough apples, as we call it in Moorish science, then she would be very enlightened. It would add luster to her beauty and adorn her. brighter than the stars of heaven. And we know that there are some stars that are very bright. All the stars are bright, but there are some that are very bright. Venus is one of the brightest stars, so to speak, which is a representation of love. But it says in an influence of her power, it is vain to resist. It's hard to resist a righteous woman when she beautiful, from the inside out. That ain't an easy thing to resist if one know what it is, that they have within their possession or that they are in the presence of, so to speak. The whiteness of her bosom transcended the lily. It didn't say nothing about her exposing herself. It's speaking about the essence of her being. Her smile is more delicious than a garden of roses. The innocence of her eyes is like that of a turtle. Simplicity and truth dwell in her heart. The kisses of her mouth are sweeter than honey. The perfumes of Arabia breathe from her lips. Shed not thy bosom to the tenderness of love. The purity of its flame shall ennoble thy heart and soften it to receive the fairest impressions. Powerful demonstration. We see something can be gained, by a virtuous woman. Remember, we talked about the two trees, one dealing with the tree of virtues and one dealing with the tree of vice. We can apply that as special measure even here. But dealing with the featured ayat, the madness of desire, shall defeat its own pursuits from the blindness of its rage. This is what we want to home in on this. Thou shalt rush upon destruction. What do we mean when we say the madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits? Let's deal with that. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Give me 1 second here. I'll share my screen real quick. And we're going to give our family some grand insight here. Be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe, family, and make sure you let our family know that we live. So we'll do this here. Gonna share our screen here. Okay. So I want to go right here to the Grand Quran. And this is actually coming from Surah 12, Ayat 53. And this is Surah Al-Yusuf, Surat Yusuf, Joseph, for those who don't know. In this particular demonstration right here, we see that it is actually speaking of where it says, I do not seek to free myself from blame in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. For indeed the soul is ever inclined to evil, except those shown mercy by my Lord. Surely my Lord is all forgiving and most merciful. We're going to go into this in a minute. And the word that's used here, when it says myself, it says anfusi, and pardon self, nafsi, pardon self, nafsi.
Nafsi.
Nafsi is what we call the knobs, right? And it actually said inna, right? And it says again, anaf sa. It actually used the word anaf sa here.
An-nafsa.
Right? And it says the soul. So we see it is speaking first of the self, and then it is speaking of another degree of the self that actually is an extension of the self as in the soul. Remember, we say nafsi,
Nafsi,
and
an-nafsa.
nafsi and nafsa. still from the same root, but it's saying, I do not seek to free myself from blame. In other words, I know myself enough to not blame somebody else for my actions. For indeed, the soul is ever inclined to evil, except those shown mercy by my Lord. Surely my Lord is all forgiving and most merciful. The soul is inclined to evil. That's why we are told, when it comes to dealing with, in the teachings of Islam anyway, that anything that is good that come to us comes from Allah. And a lot of the evil that we receive, it actually comes from ourselves. You see, a lot of people like to go back and forth about God creating good and evil, but we are vicegerents. We are rulers of the plane of things made manifest. So we have been given the capacity to choose, whereas animals, they simply exist in their expression of life. You see? So we don't seek to free ourselves from blame as it relates to our faults. But we can learn from our faults and correct our soul actions, the way we think. You see? Our will, the way we reason, the way we understand what it is that we remember, because we know the main sin of Adam, according to the Quran, is that he slipped, he forgot. This is why one of the first questions that we are asked when we deal with the teachings of moral science is, who made you? And I always like to add my little measure to it. It didn't ask you who made you do it. So you can't get the line talking about the devil made me do it and all this type of measure. She made me do it, he made me do it, they made me do it. You have to take accountability for your actions. This is why Islam is often feared and frowned upon by most people that love the Christian measure, because you can lay all your sins on Jesus, let them tell it, right? And they just miraculously disappear, dissipate. Even though one might go back the next day and demonstrate an act more sinful than the first act that they demonstrated. Make it make sense. I'm going to go to this other portion here, right? Because this is where I'm drawing my ayats from. And this actually gives you insight into what we call the stages of the soul. And this is coming from the dictionary of the Holy Quran. It states, the Holy Quran, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, we know that's the straight path. It says the word Tawbah. This actually means repentance. It means to turn away from the things that are sinful in most cases. But it says it traces the origin to the region of what they call Taskiya, the righteousness, which is the light shed in the hour of darkness, and forgetting the right path. In order to get what is called Taskiya, one must overpower the nafs al-amra. See, just as we have a 3-step ladder when it comes to consciousness, like belief, faith, and fruition, faith, hope, and love, wisdom, will, and love, or we deal with, nafs al-ilm, nafs al-ain, nafs, not nafs, but actually al-yaqi, the knowledge, of a thing, so to speak. The seeing, ayn, ilm al-ayn, ayn yaqeen. And then we have hakik al-yaqeen. These are different measures actually corresponding with, our 3-step ladder of faith, hope, and love. Or rather, pardon, self-belief, faith, and fruition. which they all tie in. But there's a 3-step ladder in reference to the knobs or the soul. There's actually 7 degrees of unfoldment. Much like, our adept degrees when we talk about the black fez degree, red fez degree, and white fez degree, and these divide the degrees, 3, 3, and 1, so to speak. The last one is the 7th adept degree. 3, 3, that's 6 and 1. And it's the same thing when it comes to knives. You actually have 7 different unfoldments of the knives as well. And they go up from knives al-amra to lawama and mutmaina. And it's going to explain these stages right here. Mutmaina is the highest state of attainment, as it relates to the soul. That's one unfolds. But it goes on to say, it says, the inner self that incites sin. This is nafs al-amra. This would be called bestiality. And we can actually see the word here on the screen, nafs. This is al-amra. You see nafs al-amra. And then you don't see a lot of the diacritical marks for the vowels up here, for those who can see this. But that would be, for the ones who looking, that's NFS, nafs, A, right? L, amra. That's the A coming off of the L. AMR. They actually add a T here, but you ain't really got to say that. It's silent. Nafs al-amra. Same thing that's spelled out here in the transliteration. But this is the inner self that incites sin. So in other words, the things that are sinful, we say sin lies not in the wish, but the act, because it has been incited, from within. Now, no disrespect. There's a saying that ones have about people that, we're going to use the term tambourine players. Imagine me moving my hand like that, and y'all know what I'm talking about, man. So for the tambourine players, in the Disma Crips, the men that chose to become that, it's a saying amongst those who are real men that's what that one already had in them. They've been like that. They didn't just start doing it when they came into prison thinking that they was the opposite gender. It was already in them. And so this is just like the inner self that incites sin. This sinful nature cannot emerge unless it's tapped into. So we're looking at it the same way. Even when you see certain individuals that may be acting on the surface level, and then you finally see who they really are, they go to acting crazy. And you like, I knew you was on that foo-foo, but it was already there the whole while. And it ain't strange that this level of the soul, nafs al-amra, is referred to as bestiality. The young generation like to gloat over that beast mode, when they do some of the most sin-filled acts that they do. I'm in beast mode. I go beast mode on a ninja. Terrible. But it's already there. Why? Because we know in our teaching, we are told that man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed. So the truth that is about you is in you just as well as the falsehood. It ain't a man that walked the earth. We can even go back to Yahushua, Muhammad, even our holy prophet Noble Drew Ali. They all had a higher self and a lower self. So that don't make you bad because you have that. What makes one, rejectable, so to speak, is where one chooses to demonstrate in the low when they have the knowledge to demonstrate in the high. Most of these God men became mastermind because they were master examples on how to demonstrate the higher self. The character they give to Yehoshua, the way he walked through them Piscean records. If you can live like that right there, you can get along with everybody. Same thing in regards to dealing with Prophet Muhammad. Same thing dealing with Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Now that don't mean that you ain't gonna have no enemies or no measures that we call brotherhood tests or trials, that you won't have to face because you are right thinking individual, you upright, independent, and fearless. In fact, it has been also echoed in the Grand Quran that, do not think that just because you say you believe that you're going to be left alone and you will not be tested. You see? And it is up to you whether you pass or fail the test. Again, and it all has to do with having a knowledge of knowing who made you. You can't say who made me do it. Who made you? Our chairman remind us of this all the time. That question, can be channeled as a mantra to aid and assist us in assuming the God form. But anyway, let's go on because we got a little ground to cover. It says the Holy Quran says human nature is surely prone to enjoying evil. And that was 1253 that you seen me read to you earlier. It says the overpowering of Nafs al-Amra leads to the development of the source of the moral condition, which is called, in the terminology of the Holy Quran, Nafs al-Lawama. This is the second stage. If you can come up out of that bestiality, which you shouldn't be in anyway, we fall by climbing into bestiality as we grow in life. None of us would expect a baby to be born in their lower self. They may be born in this carnal flesh, but a baby has the purest thoughts and purest mind until the baby begins to grow and learn habits that are taught. And these habits that are taught, in the way that they are reared up, happens to influence the way that they would unfold in the world. And then that same baby that you once loved seeing riding, running into you with that little tricycle, a little, battery powered car or whatever it is they got, smiling and laughing, kiki and gaga and goo-gooing. This same seed unfolds later on to become an adult and can become one of the most despised, hated, and rejected in the world. How is this? They may have been innocent as a baby, but then this one grows up to be a mass murderer. This one may grow up to be a thief. This one may grow up, to be, all of the things that we see on one side of life that people will consider evil or bad. But then you may see one soul that grows up and that seed, pretty much stays somewhat purified in a conscious state, and they may go through their ups and downs, but they are grounded in divinity. One can go either way, 360 degrees into the darkness of the light. Truth be told, when it comes to cycles. And this life in and of itself is a cycle. We showed you that before. This whole life is a process of initiation that leads us into illumination and perfection. So we can apply these to the 3 steps on the master's carpet, so to speak, as well. These 3 degrees of life that deals with the, chemistry, the ministry, and the mystery. So again, Nafs Lawama, however, this is what we call the self-accusing soul. Now, self-accusing soul actually has to do with, where one is conscious that they are doing wrong and they feel bad about it. And this is actually coming from, this is dealing with Siratul al-Jinn. You see, this is the Siratul al-Jinn that we are looking at. So when we talk about, this is special expression, of the soul, the self-accusing soul. Yeah, we definitely most definitely know that this self-accusing soul, is all about warning one. When you ever have that feeling where you know that you are doing wrong, and then you say, you know what, I need to straighten my act up, get my act together. You see, when you get into that special expression to where you can think like that, I'm gonna get my act together. I'm gonna do the right thing. Once you get into that special drawing, you can change something. But if you can't see through the darkness and correct your action, and you so far gone that you can't hear, anything of divinity, and you stuck in beast mode. So if you can even get to the second level of like, man, you ain't supposed to be doing that. You don't supposed to be eating that. You ain't supposed to be in that area. You ain't supposed to be in that environment. Yeah, when you get into that special thought right there, family, and you know better, then you are actually being warned. You see? You're being warned. And that means that at least you can hear. So you might have some hope to be savage, so to speak. But if you get to the point where you can't hear, then you may be in some deep trouble. Like, I mean, we can't make this stuff up, Morris Ken. One definitely have to contemplate and go within the self. You know what I mean? So that's why we have been given a grander degree of responsibility than everything else, because the animal, it doesn't know anything other than what it is that comes to it. The animal is just pretty much moving, aimlessly, so to speak, based on instinct. You see? So yeah, this is a powerful demonstration, Moors, when you get into this special aspect of things, and just being able to have a mindset to be able to reflect and make the decision to do the right thing. That's the grand degree. Praise be to Allah for making us this way. Praise be to Allah for making us this way, Morris King. Whomsoever Allah allows to go upon the path of misguidance, none can guide. Whomsoever Allah allows to go upon the path of guidance, none can misguide. You see? But yeah, these are some powerful demonstrations when it comes to dealing with these special measures. I want to go a little further, though. It says, this is the spring from which flows a highly moral life. On reaching this stage of human being is freed from bestiality. See? The change from the disobedience to the self-accusing soul being a sure sign of its improvement. See, when the self-accusing soul, begins to be activated, this is when the hair from within begin to speak to one. Again, I don't do that. I wouldn't go there if I was you. This is a sign of improvement when you can hear. Whereas before, you might have didn't care about nothing. How it came, what it took to get it, and so forth and so on. The Quranic word, alawama, it literally means one who reproves, severely. So lawama actually is a state where you begin to condemn the acts too, if you're strong enough. The nafs al-lawama is self-accusing soul and has been called because it upbraids a person from doing of evil. It says the evil deeds and strongly hates unbridled passions and bestial appetites. So when you get in this state of lawama, you actually detest anything that is other than the higher self, to where you actually gain a hatred toward the lower self. People like to hate people outside of the self, but have you ever thought about having a hatred toward the lower self part and self? A hatred toward the passions that leads you into doing wrong? Bestiality and the appetite and so forth and so on. Its tendency, on the other hand, is to generate noble qualities and virtuous disposition. So this self-accusation also transforms life so as to bring its whole course and conduct to entire moderation and to restrain the carnal passions and sensual desires within due bounds. Now, we have tools for this in more science, and we call it the square and the compass. We say that, we use the square to keep our conduct square, and we use the compass to draw a circle around our passions and desires and keep them within the bounds of righteousness. So in all actuality, we can see the use of the compass right here in this second degree of what we call consciousness. In fact, bestiality was the first level, nafs amara. Consciousness, is the second level, which is lawama, nafs lawama. So now, instead of the thinking being on the level of bestiality, now one is elevated to a level of consciousness. Now you have came to a level of conscious decision as it relates to the way that you will live your life, the way that you will exercise your ways, your acts, and your deeds, so to speak. This is the proper use of the compass in application. It goes on, it states, although the nafs al-lawama, the self-accusing soul, upbraids itself for its faults and frailties, yet it is not the master of its passions, nor is it powerful enough for tuba to return completely and practice virtue exclusively. The weakness of the flesh sometimes gets the upper hand, and then it stumbles and falls down. Yet it does not persist in its fault. Every failure brings a fresh reproach at this stage. The soul is anxious to attain more excellence and revolts against evil, which is the characteristics of the spirit prone to evil nafs, al-amra, notwithstanding its desire and yearning for virtue. Sometimes it deviates from the right path. This is all a part of the way that one is made. It goes on, and it states the last stage on the onward journey of the spiritual and moral uplift is called in the Holy Quran nafs al-mutmainna, and you heard me mention this earlier, or the soul at peace and rest. This is Surah 89, Ayat 27. This is the real stage of Tawbah, where one truly turns away from the lower self and they turn inwardly to the divinity of one's elevated state of being. This is the same thing whereas the angels were told to prostrate before man. When you turn away from your higher self, you and the lower self, then you have turned away from the Qibla, the first Qibla, a direction that the great God Allah directed man to turn toward. We know Ka and Ba represents soul and spirit in ancient Kemet, so the true Kaaba, is within one. Even in the teachings of Tasawwuf or Sufism, you'll find the same information. That Ka and Ba. And we know the soul resided within the brain, and if the spirit, is clothed with soul, then the spirit also has to be at the root of one's consciousness. This is why we say your adept chamber is above your neck. This is why the Grand Quran talk about 7 heavens that the great God Allah created, and then he rose. Istawa is the word that's used. He rose above the heavens. He's not contained within the heavens. He rose above the heavens. And this is what we call, Istawa, and his arsh, which is the seat, and his kursi, which is his footstool. This represents the throne. So although Allah has a throne, he is elevated beyond the throne. And so this is how it is when we come into a state of God consciousness, where we are physically in the world, but consciously we are out of this world. You see? Physically we are here, but our mind state is more elevated than the manifest. So we don't get caught up into what tempts a man. It states that man was created in the best of molds, but yet he falls into the lowest of the low. Whose fault that is? He's abased to the lowest of low. He abases himself when he forgets his natural constitution, which is called taqwa, the fitra in which man was created, a natural state. You see? So it goes on and it's speaking on Surah 89, Ayat 27, in relation to dealing with, this stage, Mutmain. It said, this is the real stage of Tawbah. This is the highest stage of the spiritual journey to which a human being can aspire in this world, and that he should rest contented with Allah and should find his tranquility, his happiness, his delight in Almighty Allah. In ancient Kemet, they call this second Allah. This is why we say, that Allah Kemetically represents a state of being, not just a state of being, but a state of supreme being, a state where you exist in a supreme state of being. That's the same measure that's being given here in this particular surah, 89. You see what I'm saying? And this is Al-Fajr, Surah 89. And that's Ayat 27. When we go into this special drawing here, it says Allah will say to the righteous, O tranquil soul, return to your Lord well pleased with him and well pleasing to him. So join my servants. This is the peaceful soul, the tranquil soul. Yeah. So when you get into this special drawing, this is a powerful demonstration. See? Satisfied. Mutmaina.
Al-mutma'inna.
You see? So when we are satisfied and we are content, this is when man is found to be the happiest, according to our adept commentary. The science of happiness. When you become satisfied, it's hard to tempt you. A man that is satisfied, you can't just tempt him. You can't mislead him. A woman that is satisfied, you can't tempt her to do no wrong. You see what I'm saying? This is a powerful demonstration, family. When we understand this, there's also a drawing that gets into how one's desire can become like that of a dog. They get so caught up in their passions and desires, and they, led. They got different words in here too for the word desire, but there are key words. And notice a lot of this stuff dealing with, the manifest when you're looking at a lot of these words here. To seek, covet, fornication. So a lot of this is actually what one was being warned from in the chapter as well. desires. Many different words in here. Harasta, thou desired eagerly, greedy. So desires often have to do with tapping into the greed. Hana, the desire for it to, emit a sound as a she camel toward her young, being moved with pity. I mean, you can make application of a lot of these demonstrations. The feeling of need, necessity. Some people, if they can put you in a state where you feel like you need something, you'll do all type of things to get it. Like this past holiday that they celebrated called Christmas. The desire to so-called go out there and get Christmas gifts, make people rob, steal, kill, and everything. All in the name of celebrating the birth, the so-called birth, at a time of Yehoshua, so to speak. And we don't say that to be funny. We just saying so-called because eating, drinking, and being merry ain't got nothing to do with, celebrating the birth of a prophet. Even though that's what it turned up to. People end up shooting each other. I know a couple of people got shot over the holidays. They were shooting at each other then. You think they thinking about this, the birthday of a Messiah, y'all? No, they don't care nothing about none of that. So every time we see desire, it's really dealing with, in most cases, something that somebody longing for. And I'm just going over different words without going into them. Desire, when somebody long for something, they feel like they done suffered. Like I seen some videos earlier where one literally hollering, I'm tired. Desire is being manipulated. One of the things that caused Iblis to become Iblis is because he couldn't get what he wanted. So he had a hissy fit. Since you put me in the wrong, I'm going to put them all in the wrong. I'm going to take them from the front, from the back, from the left and the right. Crucifixion there, boy. I'm looking at these words, and I'm seeing desire, and all of it deals with lust, long suffering, longing for. I'm not saying all the words here that's on the screen, but pretty much they all coming to the same conclusion. Desires. They got one here talking about, desires to turn the beast away from its course. That's what we need to learn to do when it comes to dealing with the lower self. We got to have a desire or will that is not so strong to where we can actually follow our higher self or the higher dictates of life and demonstrate being a doer of good deeds. See? Yeah, you can do what you want to. It's your prerogative, but it's up to you to be a governor of your own desires. You see? Man, it's the same thing. I'm looking at desire here too, where it can incite one toward hopes and fears. Look, one desires reaping the fruits of labor. I'm just going through here because it's too much to read, so I'm just going on what catch my eye. Reaping the fruits of labor. Don't we desire that when we go out and do work? What happened when Rome, throw you under the bus? And in the system we dealing with now, we just had like 1.4 million people that have lost their jobs in America. So they can't reap the fruits of their labor. You think that all them people gonna take that land down based upon what it is they desire? Especially if they ain't never really been on the bottom because they had all this grandiose education to hold them up in the system that so-called quote unquote guaranteed them, a good livelihood. But now 1.4 million people without work. What you think some of them gonna do? Now, if some of them come up out of the hood and that's all they know, some of them will go right back to them ways. They're gonna either pick up a pistol or a pack. and go out there and do whatever, the unthinkable, whatever you want to call it. But when you're in a high state of vibration, you would never step that low because you have dignity, you have principles. You know you ain't gonna last long when you know that you're supposed to be demonstrating the higher self, and you're gonna get out there into the devil's playground and start playing. That's just what he been waiting on. Soon as you step out there, you get hit by a Mack truck. Not in the sense of getting ran over by a truck, but in the experience that you deal with by being an angel, trying to surround yourself by demons and think they ain't gonna be willing to devour your soul. This is why the statement came forth when they say, what profits a man if he gain the world but lose his soul? I seen a sister before I started this class, and she was gloating over the fact that when she stopped listening to what people was telling her about belief, and she doing it on her own now with witchcraft, and she had a handful of money, everything good started happening for her. So she went to cussing people out, the middle finger, basically, word. Anything you got to say, I'm gonna be a witch till I die, and anybody that want to come with me. This is one that has literally lost their soul, and you can tell she was speaking from the passion, of not being able to be one that demonstrate from a level of being long suffering. So she just gave up. She gave up. I see our brother said it. Babylon done. Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. My grandmother gave me that particular demonstration. When you talk about the Psalms, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leaded me beside still water, restored my soul, lead me into the path of righteousness, and so forth and so on. And that's how one has to stand. Because this world right now that we in, the way it is, coming ahead of us, we're going to actually have to chant a mantra similar to that. We're going to have to realize that the great God Allah is the provider, El Razak, that the great God Allah is our healer. Because they even trying to make it to where our people can't even have affordable, health care, so to speak, at this particular time. So you're going to have to depend upon your discipline and your dieting. Whereas before you couldn't help how you ate, you're going to have to control the way you eat. Especially if you can't afford to get the, things you need in order to sustain your body. You shouldn't really have to do that anyway, because we know that all they have in medicine ain't nothing but, things that offset the natural course of things. It is another measure to actually push one away from their true discipline. It's leading on. So yeah, man, desires, some males. There's a measure too where speaking desire to advance, to wish, to anticipate, advance boldly. Now, this is a more positive definition, where one moves forward with a form of ambition, so to speak. And the conditions that we come under, having our desires thwarted, so to speak, by a constant upheaval, of conflict that can't be told in words. Sometimes this will make one get up off their behind and move forward. But even in moving forward and exerting yourself boldly, sometimes things still may not unfold as you wish them to. Just because you move to and it ain't that it won't happen, it just may not be time for a thing to unfold at that particular time. You see? So that's a whole nother measure in and of itself. So if your desires lead you to want to uplift yourself in your condition, then that's a good thing. He was talking here about a state of affairs without there being any attempt or desire on one's part to conceal or suppress anything. You know, and that's a whole nother measure in and of itself. We shouldn't have a desire to conceal the truth. You know, here's one that talks about what we call takatur, the act of multiplying, rivalry, vying in respect of riches, emulous desire of abundance, vying with one another to excel and multiply in worldly possessions. Competition, games of competition for wealth. You know, we see this not only between people that don't know each other, we see it between two spouses. It can cause rivalry within a household and tear it apart. Ask me how I know. You know? So yeah, we see a whole bunch of different measures up here. You know, objects of desire. Oh, they look at death, false desires, to wish, to create false desires. Well, false desires will bring you to your death. You know, so that which stirs up desire, arouses false hope, filled with vain desires. You know, these are all words. These are different words now, but I'm just looking at the definition as it relates to desires, not really focusing on all the words at this time. You know, here's the word nafasa. You know, remember we was talking about nafs. Nafasa is the root. It means to be precious in requests, console, cheer, nafsun, soul, person, self, spirit, mind, inner desire or feeling, willing. It also means punishment. Ooh-wee. You know, it's also deal with breath, freedom, action, you know, agreeable, nafas. Yeah, all that's connected to the word nafs. Yeah, so himself, blood of a person, intention. It ain't strange when one say that one get real mean and hot, they say the blood is boiling. Man. So yeah, we pretty much see a lot of this stuff in regards to dealing with, you know, desire, his evil desires, goodness gracious. And I see the connection, what we was talking about, istawa. They say a deep place, an abyss. You know, when you rise up out of that abyss in the istawa, like the prophet Muhammad brought in the Quran, where it said Allah rose, he rose. We got to rise, you know, into the thinking of the creator. So all of these things give us some idea of context as it relates to the word desire. So when we go into, you know, this is special expression, as we were speaking of earlier, and if we can relate to exactly what's being said, the madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits. We can already see by some of the definition that we gave what the madness of desire entails. It ain't gonna do nothing but basically allow you to beat yourself. Because remember, desire also deal with the self and what your soul has dictated to you. From the blindness of its rage, being so burned up in that desire, hellfire, fire and desire, like Rick James and Tina Marie said, thou shalt rush upon destruction. This is why we have to be careful by being led by our desires, because them desires can be very deceptive, Morishkin. And when you are misled, and you know, one gets you out the body, as it said, ain't no coming back. You know, if you get up out that body literally, rushing upon destruction. So we have to stop allowing ourselves to be misled by our desires. We have to stop allowing someone else to control us, you know, based upon manipulation. Whosoever Allah guides, none can misguide. Whomsoever Allah allows to go upon the path of misguidance, none can guide. So guidance always comes from the greater God Allah. This is why we've sent a holy prophet. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the best example that was sent to us as a people that actually taught us how to live a life of divinity. If you notice the way that we demonstrate, we just give instruction. We're not here to preach you to sleep, do a lot of hooping and hollering and screaming. You know, we are actually here to instruct our people from an adept degree in the lessons of character building and how to use the tools that we use in the workshop of the mind, what thought is used to build character. You are what you think you are. This is your reality. So we have to be careful again as to what or whom we allow to dictate us by what we like or what we don't like. Because people will take advantage of you, man. The world would take advantage of you. The world would chew you up and spit you out. Bones and all. So this is a powerful measure. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, our holy prophet, you know, dealing with these holy instructions and warnings for all young men. Come on, man. It don't get no plainer than the truth. And it don't take long to tell it. So we just want to say gratitude to our family and encourage our family to, you know, stay in the higher self, you know, and stay away from the lower self. And if we are able to demonstrate in this particular way, then we will always be able to, you know, climb instead of falling by climbing. So what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna open up the floor in regards to dealing with this special drawing so that we can hear from our family, you know, and see what it is that they have to say. So thank you, family, for listening. You're listening in. Islam. Star six your phone more. The floor is open.
Islam.
Islam. Assistant National Grand Mufti.
Islam. And all as honor to the entire Act One. As always, special honor to our national, our host and our national Grand Chief and our national Grand Champion Morris America and power to make law and enforce law with the system of the prophet and the Grand Father of Morris. Honor to our national assistant Grand Chief, because the assistant Grand Chief is to assist Grand Chief on our fast lives according to law, to peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the citizen of Morris America. Well, you know, the prophet did say, I brought you everything, take to save the nation, I take it and save yourself. The thinking, you say yourself. And the subject matter, I too. The madness of desire to defeat its own pursuits from the blindness of its rage, that to rush upon destruction. And you know, sir, when you was going, you know, I'm kind of a little slow. But you know, I was listening to you and praise Allah to the Holy Prophet of Ali. The first thing that did hit me when I was trying to get understanding of this class to the best
I do in Rome. And when you're talking about the college degree can be temptation. I was thinking about there's so many things that when and with respect to all of the women and sisters, what have you. Um, sir, just you was talking, and it with me, it just comes a time in life when you have to really truly be honest, with self, and knowing that you have a lower self that's gonna be, but we had a higher self that we is important to get back. So, if you're not careful, the lower self will take over you. And when causing confusion, I looked at the lower self, and I've seen many trials and tribulation when it came to women and what have you. But I'm not here to tell a whole lifetime story about it because I just really, being honest with you, I had to exaggerate about when it comes to women so that I can fit in. It just never really been one of the things for me to really be disrespectful to women or what have you, or have this falling out desire over women. I just guess because the way I was raised by my grandma, just made Wilson, I was the just made Wilson Bay. And when you talk about when we studied when they studied you, and I was just thinking, they taking time to study me, and I study and get the laws and lessons from the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, knowing that Allah, the great God of the universe, sent him for our earth. And this is what happens to a lot of people because they go to focus on the wrong thing, because that's why I love about, when it tells about in our Constitution is to keep the heart and mind pure with love. And if you keep your heart and mind pure with love, then your heart is focused on the divine and true things, with and get caught up in all this confusion, having this desire to, as they would say, chase women or pursue women, or either because as you just said that if you have a faithful sister, then there ain't no pursuing, and she's happy and content. There ain't no pursuing anything. And the same with the brother, if he's happy and content with her, there's no pursuing any other. And well, with me, I look at it when men can um, manipulate or mislead women as well as women can do the same to men, as you talked about, and as well as children can manipulate not just their parents but other people as well. Because when you look at that, the children get a little bit older. There's a lot of temptation when it comes to the young men, young women, and then you have the men, young men, older men, young men, what have you. That includes throughout the household. Sometimes stepfather, stepmother, and these lower self behavior um, begin to intimidate the behavior so that it can uh, try to get what it is that they want. And this with me is a lower self working all around, back and forth. And this has happened on numerous occasions. I'm not saying in the most government, but I've seen this take place, especially during COVID. I got a chance to observe a lot of different behaviors took place during COVID. And then when you talk about that, I think it was in delusion. And this is what it is. It's a whole lot of delusion, a whole lot of exaggerating stories, and a whole lot of exaggerating lies involved, just to get what it is that they want. That's, and then when you talked about slavery, I didn't quite catch off. I just said slaves working for slaves, keeping Europeans happy. And this sometimes when it comes to these desires and our men and women chasing all over the place, this keeps European happy because they still got the slaves working in business. They're still in business maintaining slavery. And our people, unless they have these laws and lessons and truly being faithful, don't know this. So we had many here in the Morrisburg government, and this demonstration that you're giving tonight have participated in this behavior, back and forth in this particular behavior, and refusing to acknowledge who made them. And that's the problem, when you truly mean who made you, Allah, the great God of the universe, and the nearest place that you find, the one that set the holy prophet over. You won't get so much caught up in this. I would call it sometimes foolish of being a foolish fool, because if you truly being faithful and keeping your heart and mind pure with love, then and knowing that you're gonna have the Lord self with you, but there's a higher self, then you can keep yourself in a divine order. There is no excuse, because the prophet uncovered all the excuses, turned over every stone it was that might have had an excuse about it, but it's been turned over. And then when we talk about, I know you said about defeat his own pursuit. Yes, because you can defeat yourself going after another, or after a woman out of law, with that blindness, rage, and at the same time you hurt yourself. You hurt yourself, and never accomplished that behavior what you want, but you have accomplished that lower self. You will hurt yourself in the process of pursuing anyone with blindness, rage. Rushing up on destruction, destroying yourself in the process of. And when you were talking about that, I know there's a few people I've known in the past who have actually done this and killed themselves in the process of pursuing a sister or somebody else, wife, woman, what have you. And I'm getting ready to go, so I don't want to try to border one. And this self-accusing soul. And I thought about who made you. Now you have much to fix, because you're in that beast mode. You got things to work on and things to fix. That's why you have heard many times, not you, the chairman, and Sheik, and all have spoken this to people beyond our national grand chief, Dr. Rafarama here, and I'm going to see you to our national grand chief. Now, that's why it's important that you go up there and you fix that thing above your neck. Clean it up and clean it out. All that not causing all that confusion. This as those terms they like to use, will mess your mind up. Chasing behind a sister or sisters, thinking that you can conquer here and there and everywhere. This is what caused so many problems. As they like to say, mental issues, because you don't know who made you, or you don't want to recall who made you. And we had many brothers, and a few sisters in this government who have demonstrated this behavior. That's why they're not here now, violating and breaking laws with their mind. And lastly, people do have hate. It causing all kind of confusion. They lower self. It's jealousy. And they don't even know why. Why? I'll tell you why. Because they don't know who made them. And we come here, some of us have came here and set up nothing but walls after walls after walls with bad behavior, with bad intent, men and women, with some of the same demonstration that you have demonstrated tonight, with the intent to get a man, with the intent to get a woman, and bad behavior, because you're not here trying to find out who made you. Allah, the great God of the universe, the one that set the holy prophet Noble Drawley for your earthly salvation. And then when you talk a little bit about that weakness, that's each and every one of our fault. If you have to fix that. You have to clean that up. You're responsible for self. That's what the prophets say. Study self. And when you study 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or so, you can ask you yourself, and they can ask the chairman and a few others who have been studying self. There's always much work to do. I heard that mentioned by all at one, including yourself. There's much work to do, and we have to work on fixing that, fixing self. We have to work on reminding ourselves who made you. There's no excuses whatsoever. We have to fix that. That's why we get back to our high self. That's why we have our Moorish American prayer. Who made you? Allah, the great God of the universe. You got a Moorish American prayer. None of us, any of us, have any excuses whatsoever. Fix it. That's why the prophet brought us. He said, I brought you everything it takes to save a nation. Now take it and save thyself. We don't have an excuse that we can't fix because we are God. Islam, an honor to you for the great class tonight. National Grand Chief Dr. Chai, sir. Islam. Peace and love.
Islam, brother. Peace and love. Praise be to Allah. Give me 1 second here. Islam. Gratitude for the measure, brother. Yep. So we're gonna keep it moving. Is there any other more who would like to exercise their mind? Islam, brother M.E. Bay.
Rising, giving all praise to the great God Allah, giving the highest honor to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble to Ali. Give high honor to our theocratic government, our Moorish American government. Give high honor to our Act One. Give honor to all of our officials and citizens of this Moorish American government. Give honor to those in the bleachers, so to speak. Now, those us, watching. And give honor to everything that is Moorish. And that's everything that the prophet brought to save us as a nation of people, so that all of humanity may be saved from the wrath of Allah. Third powerful class, National Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shiro Minty Elmo hit well and host on this Moorish perspective. Very powerful. As I was listening, you went through some of the stories, the ayat, and surahs in the Grand Quran, but I haven't been able to pick those up right now. I notated them. Talk about the soul is inclined to evil. I thought it was powerful. That make me think about in the soul of man in ayat 2, where though thou hast the soul is upon knowledge, the most certain of all truth, the most plain unto thee. Be meek, be grateful for it. Seek not to know it perfectly. It is inscrutable. I mean, there's just so much to learn. You know what I mean? And it behooves one to be meek, be humble. Because when you think you know it, you do not know it. Because there's, it's daily moving. And knowledge is from the great God. It is infinite. The wisdom there that speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life, And talking about that Al Lawama. I talked about the other part, the other Al. I didn't get that, but I was just kept it on that Al Lawama also generates noble qualities and virtues. So it's always that other side to every story, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's one's own intent as to where it would say end up, so to speak. But these teachings that the prophet brought us was so gift, so powerful. It gives us an opportunity. It gives us a place in this life that we can decide where we want to be. You know what I mean? And standing in defense of the truth. You know what I mean? Protecting our prophets, our government. That's the job. And of course, by doing that, we can't help but aid and assist our people. Because as we, just like Yehoshua said, he is the message that he brings. And so when we're in our higher self, I am the message that I bring. And praise the Lord. You went over so much, I tell you, one has to go back and replay this, several times because you hit on so many topics. But it's very powerful, and I'm going to say grateful. I'm grateful for being a part of this divine and natural movement. And gratitude for allowing me to speak. Islam and peace.
And gratitude for the speaking and the measure that you brought forth, brother. Allah is leading on and victory is sure. All right.
Islam.
Islam, brother. Gerald Hamid Muhammad Bey trying to get in there. What's going on?
Gratitude, Master Grand Chief. Gratitude, Grand Man. Peace and love, family. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Islam, brother.
Islam.
Gratitude. Right, brother Muhammad Bey.
Islam, gratitude, Master Grand Chief. Yes, this is Dr. Gerald Hamid Muhammad Bey of the South Carolina Consulate. First, let me rise in praise of our Father God Allah, who is the best knower and the best arranger of all things. I want to give the highest honors to his holy prophet, our holy prophet, the last prophet of these days and times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who was divinely prepared and sent for our earthly and divine salvation. I want to give honors to our Moorish American government and our Moorish American nation. I want to give honors to Act 1 and all the officials of our Moorish American government. I want to give honors to all those that have opened up the way for this Moorish Perspective International Conference Call and Study Session that's sponsored by our own Moorish American government. I want to give honors to those that have spoken before me and those that will speak after me. And I want to give honors to absolutely everything Moorish. I want to give honors to our National Grand Chief Emeritus. We know that he's sailing on smoother seas and is watching over us. We can feel the presence of his spirit in each and every class. Dr. Serapis Amun Ra'el. And we want to give honors to this new era of time because the truth is definitely being revealed so that all of the lies, all of the deceptions that all of us have gone through or been exposed to in the past, it will be no more for those that acknowledge it, accept it, and then strive wholeheartedly to live the life accordingly. Islam, Grand Man, as always, you always cover a lot of ground, but gratitude, right, for the blessing and the dressing, Grand Man. The presentation for me, being adherent, always being a student, unfolding in these teachings of Moorish science that our beloved Holy Prophet brought and taught. The three stages, the three states and stations, conditions that you expounded upon. Wow, I can see the correlation and the synonymousness with what we refer to as our three-step pyramid. But one of the things that I want to share about that first stage that you spoke on, and one of my teachers shared with me, And that is that stage of what is referred to as nafsi amara. Some people say nafsi amara. Some call it the unruly self. And one of my teachers along the path to meeting our beloved Holy Prophet, he explained to me about this word Muslim, which many, in my humble understanding, based upon this teaching, have a misunderstanding about, and why there is a significant difference between the word Muslim and the word Muslim. He explained to me that Muslim in reality is one that submits his or her will willingly or unwillingly to the will of Allah. That's very, very significant. Because, see, the Prophet came and taught us that law governs all events. So, in the state of being a Muslim, because our Father God Allah has set forth laws that govern absolutely everything, whether one is within the will or whether one is with outside of the will. This is what a Muslim truly is. A Muslim can be just as wretched and rude. I mean, just straight outright. And I know some of us along this path, probably even yourself, Grand Man, we've unfortunately had that encounter with one who says, well, you know, and I'm a Muslim, you know, but just as wretched, maybe even more wretched than one who actually would come forth and say that. I wanted to put that forth. So now the distinction is in our three-step pyramid. The first phase, we know, right? We're taught that it is belief. Now, this is significant in terms of nafsi amara, because it's very synonymous, because, see, when you're in that state of unruliness, you're literally in the state of belief. Things that I would think, or things that I would assume, or things, as we say, that I believe are the truth. And a lot of times, as we see it, especially today, the way that people, right, are thinking, speaking, and acting based upon what they believe, like one of the demonstrations that you use in your presentation. How some have lost their lives, some have taken lives based upon what one believed was an action, which started with a thought process of what they thought was the truth, something that they believed they were supposed to do as a fact of truth. But it was totally out of pocket, totally off course. But that's what it was. That unruly self, you know, or that self that presents itself as being one thing, but is not in accordance with that which they say they believe. So anyway, right? Moving on to the next phase, dealing with that belief. When you go into the nafsi lawama, the self-accusing self. You know, one of my teachers used a demonstration. I think you briefly mentioned it, Grand Man. You know, he used a demonstration of like This is when, say, you would like have your house, and you have all these treasures within your house, and you have a dog. You have a dog, right? At the stage of Nasi Amara, the dog, when the burglar, the thief, the crook, the criminal, or that demarcated thought pattern comes, he doesn't bark. He doesn't attempt to attack or ward off that which is coming. But at Nasi Lawama, the dog, which is representative, as you stated, of now being conscious, having some awareness, when those things come about, symbolically, the dog barks, warning, warning, alert, alert. One begins to be aware, of, their thought patterns, like the prophet said, if I could just get you to thinking, you save yourself. So now, one begins to be conscious of how they're thinking, how they're speaking, and how they're acting. And this final phase for us in our 3-step period, the second phase is faith. Because now we begin to know the truth, and because we begin to know the truth, we begin to strive to think, speak, and act in accordance with that truth. As that happens, as we said, that hammer of repetition that begins to hammer it into all parts, it begins to be manifested in our thinking, in our speaking, and in our actions. Not only that, because of that, there is an appetite. There is a love for that truth. Going into this state of what we refer to is called Nasi Mutuma'ina, as you said, Grand Man. And this is not a state where one is doing things for the sake of reward or for the sake of avoiding punishment or wrath. At this stage, one is not even thinking in that term because they have love for this truth. And in their heart and in their mind, their pleasure, as Allah says in Quran, indeed, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find satisfaction. This is, to me, Grand Man, just a little bit of the reflection of what you was teaching tonight. The prophet says, and this is as man unfold, his God unfolds. These are the 3 stages. And we know, like you said, it has many different degrees on each stage. But this is what the prophet, our beloved holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, brought and taught. Because he said life is spent in the building of the temple of perfected man. So he's letting us know we got to go through some things. A conflict that can't be told in words. But we have to stay the course. We have to become steadfast, especially in the persistence of the face of adversity. That's inevitable on this path. So this is what I get from the class that you brought tonight is, again, the first thing that we see when we open up our Moorish Holy Quran Circle 7, know thyself. The presentation that you put forth tonight, Grand Man, it has unlimited amount of degrees of the knowledge of the self. And we don't get these teachings, not the way that you presented it or the way that it is given to us to present. from our beloved holy prophet to each other. It's not expounded upon. I lived so-called Sunni Islam for 15 years of my life. Now, I'm going to leave it at that. And I did not get the proper understanding, the correct understanding, until I met our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, and all of the Moorish kin, all of the officials, the brothers and the citizens, the gods and the goddesses in this Moorish American nation within our own Moorish American government. And I just want to share that little experience, you know. Islam and gratitude, grand man, is a grand class as always. Thanks for letting me share. Peace and love.
Islam and gratitude for the measure, brother. You know, when it comes to dealing with the concept, you know, a Muslim, you know, there's a drawing in relation to dealing with the teaching that even Shaitan is a Muslim, but he's merely a Muslim. You know, so one may be merely a Muslim, but not a Muslim, as the brother Rashad Khalifa would say. You know, to truly be a true Muslim, you have to really demonstrate what we call the Muslim degree, because Muslim is one who submit to God. Muslim is the will of God, as we know. And this is the same drawing when we get into the fruition of Mutmainah. You know, when one is truly at peace and they become that peace. So yeah, we give honors to you, brother, for that drawing. Allah is leading on and victory is sure, you know. Even Islam is the first degree of entry into the way of life, but you got to get the Ihsan, you know, which is a totally different demonstration. You know, the Mushinun degree. So praise be to Allah. It's all about that 3-step ladder, though. Well, all right. Is there any other more that would like to come forth and exercise their fire before we go to calling on our officials? Islam? Islam, grown man.
Sharif Abdul Ali, the last in these days of time. And I give honor to one of our divine constitution. And I honor you, brother, all our officials. And I'm a Moorish can online. Peace and blessings. Peace and love. But brother, you know, when you were speaking of that problem of God, you know, and you know, that's basically all we learn coming up in this world. You know, and it seems that most of our people have been programmed against the truth. When you start speaking the truth, they start quoting the Bible and not even understanding, you know, the meaning in between the words. You know, they take everything so literally. It's like they would, it's like a program come back into them and turn them away from the truth. You know, but false desire have a man suffering all his life. You know, because we desire things that will hurt us. You know, even our diet. You know, our relationships, and so many things. You know, that's why the prophet taught us, you know, to live a life of divinity. You know, and I don't want to take it too long because I know we're up. And like you said, the world will beat you down. You know, it'll beat you down and spit you out. You know, especially when the people who don't have the knowledge of self, you know, don't understand what our unity can do for us. You know, just like I tell my son, I said, you are fighting against, you know, because I got a step grandson too, and my son, you know, raised, and I tell him, you're not fighting him. You know, you can't make it too personal because you're actually fighting against a program. You know, because we pass that program on to our children, generation after generation after generation of being who we are, thinking that this, you know, not even knowing of the illusions of this world, just living, you know, trying to make ends meet. You know, so when a more understand the plot, and he understands the program that has been programmed into our people. That's where that patience come in at. That's where that unconditional love come in at. That's where the more we go that extra mile, for his people, even though, and when I think about that seven heaven, I think about the crown chakras, the chakras, and when I think about when you were saying, we live above the temple, and then I'm thinking about that crown chakra. It's like when you get there, you know that you're having an experience and you're trying to perfect self, and then you're not affected by what's going on because you're in the world, but you're not of the world. It's sort of like playing a video in front of a television that has a code, that has a program, but you're the operator, even though they're crashing. You're just having an experience. It doesn't hurt you because in the end, what I'm saying, that the spirit of God never compromised, was never compromised. It was always there, And so when man raised above his fleshly desires and his lower self, then he understands, and that makes his life easier. And then, like my brother was telling me, I was telling him that, people fight against this truth. He said, well, I try not to give it to them unless they're really searching for it. I don't just bombard them with it. But if they're searching, if they're asking for it, they walk away happy. If they ain't asking for it, they're liable to say, man, But at the same time, there's no strange happening, without a word is lost. Great class, brother. Great class. Peace and blessings.
Blessings, brother. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. Yes, sir. All right. Want to give honors to all the Moors that came forth exercising their fire. And at this time we're gonna go to the officials. Starting with our sister Al-Seta Moon Islam. You there, sister? All right, we know the sister about the business of our Father God Allah. Let's call for Islam.
Dr. Marvin as well to open our conference call with prayer. Dr. Tahiti to open our conference call for the law. Dr. Marvin as to open our conference call with prayer. Other song Lord citizens of our full day measures also of our understanding coming from our chapter 43 of our Muslim Quran, ayah 3. The blindness of desire, but he defeated some to think from the blindness of its faith, down to principle destruction. Thank you, Tom. I was able to listen to Megan. One thing I had to I had to agree with you on is when you said ask me how I know. And so looking at what society, the indoctrination that society has given for our people to understand the sadness of it all, when you look at the fact that we don't even realize that the whole thing that we were about consider receiving. And they have not fulfilled their potential as human beings, as men and women, as nourished men and women. Very few people get to fulfill their potential, their divine potential, as Allah would plan for them because of the mindset that they were indoctrinated to uphold the ideals that they were given consciously to delay and distract and detour. And so now we see the mechanar of what the indoctrination has done over the centuries in humanity as a whole. Morse King in particular, because that's the charge of the gates of home and then it spreads abroad. So looking out for our people, at our people, with our people, to our people, give them that understanding that the prophet has given us, to show them the patience that the prophet has given us. And like you said, understanding is the rock on which man builds himself. So that they don't have the information, they can't build. And so with all the things that have distracted them, indoctrinated them to turn away from the truth, only the prophet, he said, just plant that seed and he'll do the increase. Because he understands the makeup of a Moorish man, a Moorish goddess. He understands the nature and how to spoken to their needs. And he's giving us the tools to assist in talking to our people's needs. And to each person have their measure, reach their needs when the time comes. It's the level of the need to give it to. And the prophet is always there to assist once we call on him and ask him for help. That's why he said we have children and stuff about protectors on our ground. We have everything we need to assistance of the ancient forefathers, to our ancestors, to our legion of angels. We have all the assistance we need to help our people. And in doing so, help ourselves. Because we can't get a metric that's ladder without understanding the mistake of position, understanding what the prophet has called us divinely in these lessons. So, God let me one mind get distracted to the point where you can't even return and come back out of it. I think that starts with the force of functional thinking you think yourself. Because he understood if you never really know what you don't know, you can't start thinking. Because you don't even know what you're missing. And that's why we have to continue what we're doing, because we understand the mindset of our brothers and sisters. We understand that they really don't know what they don't know. And so therefore, they sometimes they see until something happens, then that seed that's been planted reminds them, wait a minute, there's something like this. And that will start them to think. Then they'll pursue you for more information on the subject matter. So this was a grand class. These guys people call me forth, much peace and love from the Moorish King.
Islam for the measure, sister. Praise be to Allah. All right. Let us call forth our National Grand Mufti, Dr. Kanshu Ma'at Herube, Islam. You there, Grand Man? Islamism.
To this fourth we rise, giving our thanksgiving, adoration, worship, and praise to the great God of the universe, our Father God, Allah, the most beneficent and the most wise. We give the highest honors that we can give to his prophet, our prophet, the last prophet in these days and in these times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. El Hashi Sharif Abdul Ali, the savior of humanity.
We give honor to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And we give honor to his government, our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live, according to Act 6. We give honors to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers and swift angels, our mufti and our royal council, our secretaries, our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honor to our flag and our divine constitution and bylaws, our Holy Quran, our Grand National Seal, Grand National Emblem, our Book of Fire, the exhumed of a nation. We give honors to everything that is Moorish. We give a special high honors to our National Grand Chief, Dr. Shadu Amiti Medu Shepsuel, for bringing forth this Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us, to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, angels. We continue to give the honors where they're due, and honoring all true and divine prophets. And we give honors to our ancestors. They have come before us leading the way. But we are them today without doubt or contradiction, because no one has the power to change man from his descent nature. Praise Allah for that. And we extend that special honors to our Grand Sheikh Emeritus, Dr. Serapis Amir Rael. In the grand class, when I think about desire and, an example that fits that, I look at it today and today's dating scene. You can see this diet being demonstrated, a lot of the concept and desires of what women want out of a man, want out of a man, have one blind to the fact that, they looking for something that's really imaginary. And it leads to self-destruction, trying to build a man, having certain height, he got to be a certain height and make a certain amount of money and be emotionally available, and the list goes on and on. And then they find themselves rushing destruction, chasing the fantasy. And it's the same way for the men, one is, she got to look a certain way, her body got to be a certain way, and she got to cook, clean, and shut up. They're looking for something that's a cookie cutter demonstration, and the desire to have this illusionary type of person blinds one to the fact that Allah made each and every one of us unique, and then we should be looking for the uniqueness, the gifts and talents that each and every one of us have, in order to see if that demonstration is in line with your demonstration. Everybody's not going to have the same type of person. We're just not created like that. There's not a cookie cutter person out there that can fulfill the wants and desire of what's one been programmed to think that that's what you're supposed to have. And I see it all the time, and it just, like I said, it plays its eye out perfectly when I look at that aspect of how ones will say they'll miss all the red flag, that a person is giving you because you so tuned in and focused on meeting a certain criteria that has nothing to do with character. That has nothing to do with standards and principles. That has nothing to do with the person's divine journey and connection with divinity. It has nothing to do with one's view of their life and where they want to go with it. It's all based on materialistic thought patterns. And that's definitely a mindset that we can't have as we build families in our nation. The family is the most important thing that we can do for our nation is build a strong family. Because the family is what continues to furnish the nation with strong men and women, more character standards that's going to lead our nation into a prosperous goal, a prosperous direction. You know, if we leave and we continue to go with the thought pattern that we always trying to look for something greener on the other side of the fence, we are destroying our family. It's something I was thinking about earlier, how, you know, the family structure, we don't have one as a people at this point. It's been taken from us, and that's why, you know, I see a lot of ones out here having multiple children by multiple women, because really, internally, one is searching for a family. It don't work out with this woman, so you go out with another one. What is the internal motive to that? Well, it feels like there's an internal motivation in every single last one of us, men and women that have children, to reproduce. Just as that demonstration is programmed in your very being, so it has to be programmed in the very being that has family. Because without the family, how are you going to take care of children that's produced? How would you continue to bring forth the generation? So that's in one internally, whether one knows it or not. It's just that most of our people have not lived or witnessed the divine union, divine family, and seeing how it's supposed to work accordingly because of what has been done to our people. But that doesn't mean that it's that internal primal drawing is not there. It's there. And, you know, why would great God put in your being the instinct to have children and not the instinct to take care of them? And the only way they're going to be taken care of properly is in divine union, where it's masculine and feminine is balancing the creation that was created from their union. Demonstration is part of one's being. And so we know that it's been a plan by the opposition to continue to destroy the family, destroy our family in particular, destroy the structure, you know, the manhood and the womanhood of how them things are demonstrated, destroy the authority in which the family is set up. You know, this is why we praise the law for our proper bringing all that back, you know, and giving us structure to what's supposed to be done, because wanting something that's not natural to the self, it may be normal in the time and period, but it's not natural to your growth and development, does lead to a blindness that you can't see that you're going the wrong direction, because one's programmed you to continue to try to search for something that's imaginary. It's going to lead to one destruction, because once you realize you didn't spend all this time chasing illusion, you know, it can be harmful to the psyche. It can be harmful to one's concept of, you know, the usefulness of one's life. You know, I spent my whole life chasing an illusion and focused on what was real, what was and most important, my family, and being responsible citizen of my nation, so that my family would be taken care of, because the nation is taken care of, and the nation is where is the umbrella in which we get our protection and our guidance. So, we draw that Instagram drawing for us to recognize this in particular eye and measure out of it, knowing that the more that you want something that seems impossible to get, the more that you're gonna find that it's probably set up for someone, set up by someone that have you in that thought pattern. Because what's natural to you, you'll always be able to access. What's right for you, you'll always be able to access. Just like the air. You ain't got to go nowhere to look for air. It's there for you because it's naturally there for you, and God put it there for you. The water's there. You don't find a body of water. The water's in the plants, the water's in your breath. It's set up for you naturally to have it. It's just the things that are unnatural that you find yourself with the folks' problems trying to attain. And that's because it was set up that way. So we got to get back into our way of doing things, because the other way is the way these guys in Europe have set it out. The ones that's continuing to want to live that way and live under the guidance of a European slave master, European ideology, European God who's trying to tell you that your heaven's here is in the sky, by and by, is nothing but death for us. So we got to get back to the Moorish way of doing things, and it takes a Moorish American to teach a Moorish American how to be Moorish American. So gratitude for this class, National Grand Chief. Gratitude to you, Moorish America, for being here with us, giving us your time, attention, and respect. We love you. Islam and peace.
And Islam and peace for that measure, Mufti. Gratitude. Praise be to Allah. Well, all right, let us call forth our Grand National Secretary of the State, Sister Shepsut Rakat Ma'at and Putu to come and Bay. Islam, you there, Goddess and Queen? Islam.
Islam Moorish Kin. First of all, I'm going to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet, Noble Jura Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, the angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish kin, giving honor to all those Moors that spoke before me, all those Moors that will speak after me, giving a special honor to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, according to law, also to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay. Online, it's been a Grand Moorish Perspectives class this evening. Giving honor to Act 1. Our host instructor also, our National Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, Dr. Shetta Wamenti El Mahedja. Two of our subject chapters for the week, the madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuit. From the blindness of its rage, thou shalt rush upon destruction. So again, as our National Grand Sheikh spoke about, we're looking at character building. And as the title of our subject chapter states, this is holy instructions and warnings for all young men, but it's not just restricted to our brothers. This is for all those that desire to deal with the study of the self, to learn about their special soul, those things that are virtuous, that of those codes that one needs to fight to, in essence, unfold into your God state. So it was a powerful measure, especially when you were giving us these 3 degrees in reference to the bestiality mode, nafs al amara, the inner self that incites sin. Just go looking for mess, looking for naught, looking for dirt. Where the Surah speaks about human nature is prone to evil, and we don't have to have it. Then when we go to this next level of Nas al Lawana, the warning where you're actually starting to hear your own giving you that warning, don't go there, or get yourself together, what have you. Recognizing that moderation is key. That's a powerful degree as well, because passions and desires, what we got to have, even though it's not a necessity, we can get taken off the count by following these illusions and pacifiers of the mindset. And the thing that really stuck out to me was dealing with Taba returning completely and practicing virtue exclusively. You are your higher self. You are the message that you bring. When you're speaking about the highest stage of the spiritual journey, rest, being contented with Allah, resting in tranquility, the state of supreme being. When you were speaking about second Allah, when I heard the term fields of peace, that in itself gives such a grand drawing in reference to not have to go through misery, death of one's consciousness, or traveling around in the wilderness having no clue of why you're here, what your purpose is. Being able to be content and satisfied, recognizing that state of paradise, that takes to have these lessons to be able to unfold into the God state. So when we look at these powerful degrees and lessons, we have got to make it applicable to the self. In essence, being the message that we bring, and therefore we're able to truth and not only teach our brothers and sisters, but also the other nations of the world that are still seeking peace. And we know it's not at the end or a barrel of a gun. So gratitude more for administration. We give honor to our family online, and much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin. Islam.
And Islam, Grand National, Islam National Grand Secretary of the State, we give honors to you for all that you do. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. Well, all right. Well, let us call forth our Grand National Chairman, Dr. Akin Acton Pert M. Heru, to the coming back. Islam, you there, Grand Man?
Jehudi first, National Assistant Grand Speak.
I don't know why.
Good.
Praise be to Allah. I'm so used to speaking behind you. Islam. Well, all right. Let us call forth our National Assistant Grand Sheikh. And pardon self, brother. Islamism without the schism.
God Allah. We give honors to our Holy Prophet, Noble Jew Ali. We give honors to the Moorish American government, honors to Act One, all our officials. We give honors to our Grand National flag, a Grand National seal, and a Grand National emblem. We give honors to all Moorish Americans here, there, and everywhere. Special honors to all those Moors that are online. And honors to all those who spoke before me, and honors to all those who speak after me. We give high honors to you, Sheikh Shaheed, for another grand Moorish perspectives coming out of chapter 43, ayah 2. The madness of desire shall defeat his own pursuits. From the blindness of his rage, thou shalt rush upon the give honors to the Moors that gave a grand demonstration earlier, the measures. And when you speak in Sheikh about that, when you start out talking about that harlot and that temptation, living in a world of manipulation, that was very powerful. keyed on the word desire, that temptation and the manipulation in the world. And there's so much going on around us, grand man, where ones are being on a constant basis manipulated to hate the skin that they're in, manipulated and to desire to want to hurt one another, so to speak, by the music and by the visuals, movies and whatnot. And it's been happening for such a long time. And when we think about the desire, it's so much with that one word. You know, I know back in the day when, I think it was Rick James and Tina Marie had a song out called Fire and Desire. And that lower self was very, very powerful back in the day. Manipulation, words, visual, because they put on a very steamy show, a live show. They took it to a whole different level. For ones that know the story. But when our prophet gave us everything it takes to free ourselves, he also gave us the tool in order to help us do that. Because our prophet knew beforehand the things that we were going to need in order to continue his journey, the work that he set out for us to do. And desire is very necessary for us as a people. One knows, especially the men online, the gods online, we know how now we see our women, our goddesses out there in the world, half dressed, just acting out, doing things that, oh my goodness, that we never thought that we would even see in our lifetime. Even the men doing just having desire to do things outside of themselves. You know, following the crowd, so to speak. You have to ask yourself, where did they get this? Wanting to be women, men wanting to be women, women wanting to be men, fighting one another, manipulation. Our prophet gave us the tools to battle this. He gave us the highest principles known to man. Us here in the Moorish American government, we're here to teach our people who they are, to bring them back to our Almighty God Allah. And when you said, grand man, you are what you think you are. Well, we were told who we were. We were told that we were Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian. We were told that we were something that we were not. We were letting ones dictate and manipulate us as a people. It was until our beloved prophet, Noble Joe Ali, who opened up the door to our wisdom, and know that we are one with the mighty God Allah, to let us know that we are not property, that we are not something that some man made in a laboratory, that we are gods and goddesses. Put us back on the right course. And this is who we are as a people. That desire is something that has gotten us off the course. We have a desire to be free. We have a desire to be strong-willed men and women, gods and goddesses. Now we have a desire to be perfected man, doing the right thing, applying our principles, carrying on the job that the prophet started, freeing our people from the manipulation of the world, getting away from those things, as our Grand Mufti was speaking on those materialistic things. We can go on and on and on, wanting little shiny things or big houses and big cars, while you can't even feed your own children. This is a sad state of affairs. We are here to set that straight by these lessons that we're giving for free, and we're not boasting about it. This is just what we have to do. We're on a mission. Our sheep on a daily basis gives us a high understanding of who we are and who we're not. And I give honors to Prophet. I give high praise to Mighty God Allah for even being able to sit in the same room with professors of divinity. This situation that we're in calls for the wisdom of the Moors to get away from the desire of the lower self. It calls for the higher self within us to bring our people back home. Give honors to the Grand Man for this beautiful class. Once again, this high vibration that you always give. And praise Allah for you. And praise Allah for each and every one of you, your listening ear, for being on the front line. Islam. We love you, family. Peace and love.
In Islam, the love is mutual, brother. Islam, the love is most definitely mutual. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. All right. But let us call forth our Grand National Chairman, Dr. Akin Acton Pert M. Heru, to come and bay. Islam. You there, Grand Man? Man, we can't wait for you to get instruction to the young man. Islam.
Take the favorite nation. And more than we just want to give much honor to all those that spoke this evening, because it's been a powerful journey. Powerful, powerful, powerful. And I want to give much honor to all Voice Americans here, there, and everywhere. The thing about this chapter here is that it's holiness stuff is one for all young men. And the thing about it, you ain't gonna have a nation unless you got some young men in it. They're the foundation of your nation. They're the one that produce just about everything. And this is the reason why it is that Allah directed the prophet to direct this divinity towards our people. So more than just an honored blessing, it's just a powerful, powerful class. And I want to thank everyone for their participation. Islamism without a schism. Thank you.
Islamism, that's right, without the schism. We give honors to you, Chairman, for setting these instructions out here. Because if you don't get them here, you ain't gonna know nothing about being no man. Especially when you're talking about a Moorish American national, master of Allah's nature. Goodness gracious. Well, you got to study yourself, be you, and master you. Ooh, you ain't going to get that nowhere else. And we don't say that to beat up on nobody. We just telling the truth. You know, so we give honors for all it is, you know, that you have done, Grand Man, along with our National Grand Sheikh Emeritus, National Grand Mufti Emeritus, the Prophet, you know, first and foremost, always on the front line. If we ain't going to get nothing up out of that type of guidance, then we just ain't meant to be guided. Allah can't be guiding one if we ain't getting it from, you know, the God man, you know, as is manifested in the sources that we have found. So we just say gratitude, and we want to give honors to all of our family, you know, and hopefully this lesson has inspired one, you know, to be uplifted and begin to uplift as well. That being said, January 15, 1929, a warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen, a group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we bring forth this divine decree. Chapter 25, a holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Yea, the children of one father provided for by his care, and the breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Moorish movement, divine movement, everlasting movement. You and I tie Islam-ism without the schism. Peace and love.
And don't let the people thank you. Praise the chairman. Peace and love.
It's Mo. We love you, Mo. Give honors to all of our Moorish kin, and as well as the ones that's out there in social media. You know, Babylon Don, Charles War, Eric Deraz, Tarif Bey, and Sister Cena Renee, you know, Ronnie Dwight. We give honors to all of our family. Peace and love to all of you, and we look forward to seeing you in the next cycle. Islam. Peace and love, more. See you in Sunday school. Peace and love.